Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And yes, it's going to be a very, very interesting and topical subject. Tonight I'm talking to a man who is on the inside. His identity will be kept secret, and I will call him X. It's becoming more and more apparent the world will never be the same as pre-COVID for 99% of us. Just to warm up the subject of what the New World Order have planned for us, consider these two facts. Food prices are exploding this year, and Bill Gates, who is the biggest farmland owner in the United States, has declared that he will not be involved in livestock farming. Consider the impact of this move on meat prices. Let me show you graphs of the exploding global prices of staple foods. Here we go. I bet you nobody told you this. This is soya beans. Look at the price in 2021. Look where it's going. And let's have a look at the next one. That's wheat. Look where wheat's going in 2021. Right off the chart. And how about corn? There's corn price going in 2021. You know what that means. All right, let's continue. Before getting X on, consider what is said in this 2-minute audio clip where Johan Rupert's predictions, including the global reset following the global lockdown over COVID, are discussed. And after this, we will get X on and we will get right into it.
Received a WhatsApp this morning that really shook me. It shook me to the core. And I asked Neville permission if I can chat with you for a few minutes, and he said yes. Johan Rupert made this statement. This isn't just a pause. It is an entire reset of our economic system. This applies to every country in the world, not only South Africa. This isn't just a pause worldwide. I'm adding the word worldwide. It's an entire reset of the world economic collapsed system. So as the COVID-19 pandemic spreads, business leaders are painting a very grim picture of our economic future. And I'm not here to be negative now. This is going to be a positive conversation. So they are busy painting this grim picture of our economic future and are giving their ideas on how the world will have to change and adapt and readapt. Now, Johan Rupert's father, Anton Rupert, he built Remgro. He built Richmond. Johan started the company called Renet. And they are all being upended by a virus that few saw coming. And not just those three companies. Every company around the world is being upended as I talk. People speak as if this is just a blip. This is Johan, I'm quoting him, Johan Rupert. People speak as if this is just a blip. But I don't think it's like anything that we've ever seen before, he's telling the Financial Mail. Economists are discussing if it's a V-shaped curve or a U-shaped curve, and Johan is laughing and saying this is meaningless. What they don't get is that this isn't just a pause, it's an entire reset of our economic system. Johan Rupert is a very wise businessman. He forecasted in 2007 what would happen in 2008 to the T. He said, my gut feeling is that the risks are getting bigger and bigger, just before the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay, now that's the gist of what the fellow's talking about. I'm going to get X on now. Please remember to subscribe to Loving Life on YouTube and register on lovinglifetv.com, the new news platform we are currently transitioning to, where we can go into much more detail without being censored by, guess who? Yep, Google. All right. Now, while I'm getting X on, please put your questions in the side chats if you have any for X, and I will put those to X later.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, X. How are you?
Very good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you.
perfect. All right. Now, let's get right into the subject. First off, is South Africa independent? If not, who actually owns South Africa?
Okay, Scott, just from my side as an intro, I just want to let you and everybody else listening know that I feel for South Africa, really. South Africa is bleeding, like we all know, politically, economically, with this virus in every possible way. And unfortunately, things do not look better on the horizon. And I think it's time for everyone in South Africa to unite beyond political lines, party lines. That is the biggest issue in our country, is political division, because we are going into very, very tough times soon. And global business people in South Africa know this very well. Politicians know this very well, and they will soon start disintegrating, self-collapsing, because they don't want to stand in the firing line when we start seeing famine and a food crisis really kicking in South Africa. So just to say what I'm saying is, I am for South Africa, every race, every religion, every gender in South Africa, but we need to start taking this crisis seriously now and start talking to each other beyond political lines, beyond racial lines, so we can get unity to overcome this, because there is options to overcome this. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so based on the, we obviously set out a couple of topics to discuss. And my first question to South Africa, because this is why the intro, I want people to understand. The first question I have is, many people agree and believe that South Africa is not independent, but the subject stays there. The question we should all ask is, who owns South Africa? And when does this ownership of South Africa start? Because it was not yesterday, and it was not a few years ago when the ANC started corrupting, or the corruption that now publicly comes out from a few years ago. It was not then. I strongly believe state capture and our independence was lost already in 94, even before, but in 94 definitely. And powerful business people in this country, unfortunately, plays a very, very big role. It's not difficult to, I've got some facts around that as well, but it's not very difficult to figure that out just by looking at the media and public information as well. So just start tracing. Just start tracing. That clip that you played just now about Johan Rupert's comment, this is not a pause, that was blown up all over the media. And it was saying, this is not a pause, this is a reset. Now, personally, 2 weeks into lockdown, I want to know, or into this pandemic, I want to know how Johan Rupert knew that this is not a pause, but a reset. Because that was a very new pandemic at the time. And then barely in Cyril Ramaphosa's second speech, COVID-19 speech, he claimed the same thing. He said, after this, we will have a total new economic system in this country. He clearly stated that. So what economic system will we have after this? We need to start asking these questions. And just to add on to that, then we see Tokoyo Sexwale's release of some information on the news. And draw the conclusion, because suddenly the entire media is dishing it as a scam or a QAnon scam or whatsoever. That is not a scam. These people are turning on each other. I strongly believe they are self-collapsing, and that is why, because the current political system ruling the country has got a very dark front in front of them, and now things are starting to get really, really warm. Okay, so let me get into this. I personally strongly believe that ANC is self-collapsing, and the scale of this corruption that will become public in the next month or two, that's already happening now, will be so enormous that they will obviously, after the collapse, they will ask opt for an amnesty. Same that happened at the end of apartheid, when there was an amnesty for political business people and high-level politicians and military people. So that is definitely on the cards. I can basically almost assure you that. I will share some facts with you on that afterwards. Then we look at the fact that one of the big business families in South Africa recently started a new political movement called the UIM, and United Independent Movement. Now, the structure in itself, for me, is a problem, because you cannot have a united independent movement that stands for independent candidates, but you select whoever you allow on that platform. So it's totally controlled again. But then looking at the leadership of that, sorry, can I continue? You must stop me, Scott.
Yeah, no, are we getting to who actually owns South Africa?
Yeah, we are working towards that now.
Right, okay.
So if you look at this new organization starting, and you look at the persona, check the people in this country that are involved in politics. I've got really nothing against these people. Just the fact that they are corrupting our country, stealing from everyone, and while everybody is suffering. So looking at the persona, and then the public information that he shares publicly is he was in the Tokoyo Sexwale, high-level ANC, pre-94, even pre the referendum. He was already in the Tokoyo Sexwale high-level ANC positions.
We were talking about Neil de Beer.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
And then after the 94 election, he was obviously still in the high enclaves of the ANC, and then started acting as economic advisor to different presidents. And then from there on moved on to become the World Bank leg of Africa president. So my question on that specifically to all in South Africa, and we must ask this question, does that not constitute to state capture? Because the Guptas came in here, they influenced politics on a high level and chose ministers, and that constitutes to state capture. So why is it not the same for highly placed South African business people that were, in fact, high within the ANC ranks at the time? So, and then going out from there on and roll out economic policy for the country, and then not just for the country, for Africa. So in my view, not in my view, in my strong confirmed opinion, white minority capital does exist in South Africa, but it exists in a few powerful families. And at the same way, it exists in a few black families, in a few colored and Indian families. So it's not a white racial thing. It is a power play of high business people. And they are very much connected. They are all very much connected. So, sorry. Then there's a couple of serious questions within these families. There's on record statement that they are rolling out a new political system like in the rest of the world currently in South Africa, or that's what they plan to install in this country anyhow. And I've got that for you on record. And so my question is, what political system is this? Is this like a new world order? Because that's what it means. A new world order means a new political system. There's nothing sinister or nothing conspiracy about that. That's in fact what it means.
Right.
So and then you start looking at some of these organizations that's popping up left, right, and center, and you start tracking back who sits behind. And then you see, but there's actually names popping up all over the show. So like this Michael Louis, billionaire, banker, investor, Swiss-based, whatever. A lot of these links actually leads to Switzerland and foreign countries. A lot of these guys are based already. Their main bases are in foreign countries, not business bases whatsoever, not anymore in South Africa. So they've got their plan B sorted out already, while we have to sit here and go through this in future. But then you start linking these up, and these people were very much involved, even in the compilation of our current constitution. This Michael Louis was very influential, as well as the new recently passed legislation to choose elect independent presidents in South Africa. Now that in itself raised a big question, because the ANC government, as we know them, apparently accepted this new legislation. They welcomed it.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, that's very surprising, because that's not normal for our ANC government that ruled for the last 7 years. So, and then you saw, okay, Masawa Lakota, he actually first in 2018 proposed that same legislation. So, which means obviously he was already linked to Michael Louis at the time. And this was just taking a step further now with One South Africa, UIM, Move 1 Million, COPE, and all these parties joining together and proposing it to Parliament. And based on that, I asked some very serious questions. What is the plan? I've got on record that certain people claim they are pre-selected to become the next president of this country, roll out a new political system. You can basically see the ANC and the DA both imploding at the same time, obviously making space. I've got it from a high-level DA placed politician as well, that we will have a coalition going forward. So it seems it's all very much planned.
Right.
And from my side, I wanna say to these people, basically, both the black politicians involved, the white business families and politicians involved, politicians on all sides of the line, they screwed enough with us now. This stuff is going to come out public, and it's going to come out public soon from various sides. And then South Africa needs to accept this truth that's coming out. We need to accept this fact, and we need to bury the hatchet, because we are divided. We are definitely, permanently, they are dividing us, because the moment we unite, there's no system that can keep us down. That's the main goal. So, and based on this, there were some serious questions that arose at the time. I'm going to get into the most critical one just now. I just don't want to just jump into that. But I've started asking these questions, and I started looking at these facts and spoke to a couple of other politicians about it. And South Africa has had in our current government, in our current parliament, we had a constitutional crisis from 2017 when Jacob Zuma stood up and said, I know exactly who is stealing and where they are stealing from, right? So he implicated obviously a lot of people in parliament. So not a single politician took him to book on that. Not a single one. The media went to, it's all on the media still, you can check it. They went to Julius Malema, they went to Mmusi Maimane, the DA leader at the time. They went to various politicians and asked them, what's your thought on Zuma's comments? And they all said, he must go to the police. They all failed their constitutional duty right there and then. Right there and then, because as parliamentarians sworn in under an oath to protect this country from foreign and domestic. And obviously Zuma made himself complicit number one, because he obviously stated that he knows about these crimes. Right. And nothing to date was done about that. So the DA did nothing, the EFF did nothing, no one. So that started drawing the lines that these guys are in cahoots with each other. They are not opposition. We don't have an opposition. If we had an opposition, then by now there would have been serious court cases from any of these opposition parties against the corrupt politicians or specific politicians. As was the case. So you can take this much further. There's seriously no opposition in our parliament.
Okay, now can I ask you this question, X?
Yes.
And that is, there's a lot of conspiracy about whether South Africa is actually a corporation registered on Wall Street. And if people living in South Africa, the day they get their birth certificate, become a share in that corporation. They're not actually independent people walking around the country being free. They're already basically owned. Is that a true situation, or is that just a crazy conspiracy theory?
Well, it actually should go a bit further than that, because if South Africa is not independent, I mean, why do we don't have a government? We have a board of directors with a CEO running, and that's pretty obvious. That we have a board of directors with a CEO running this country on behalf of banks and big business people, and trace these banks. They all lead back to the same people. They all lead back to the same people back in Switzerland and Spain and all over the world. There's a big spin on this. I mean, people will admit these things in public or in media, and then they just spin doctor it. Like it sounds like, it's obvious, or, it's common knowledge. No, it's not.
Yeah. So someone like Michael Louis is like one of the masters controlling South Africa, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's definitely highly involved. There's 9 big families currently involved to roll out this new political system that I can state.
That's around the world.
South African business families.
Right.
But
now, I just want to read to you what Matlabantu said in the side chat, because it's relevant to what we're talking about here. He said, yes, white monopoly capital is running this country. Now, my question to you, X, is he correct? And if so, because you said just now it's not just whites. If he is correct, who actually is white monopoly capital? Because it's not 99.9% of the white population, that's for sure.
No, not at all. It's only a handful of families and well-connected and intertwined families, let me put it that way.
Right.
But the same thing stands for black, can I call it black minority capital? Because there's a handful of powerful black people they are in cahoots, they've got exactly the same thing. Remember in 1994 when everything was, New South Africa is born and everything is awesome, and there was a a few guys in prison. Let's call it prisoners of war. I don't know, as armed struggle fighters.
Right.
And then they were released out of prison, and there was big deals behind this. And actually, we all know that. That's also stated as fact, by the way, that Mandela was allowed out of prison before '94, and there were some big level meetings with overseas people as well.
Yeah, we've seen photos of that.
Yes. So there was obviously deals made at the time. You take people that are locked up for high treason and whatsoever, and they were about to be given that some of them were about to be hanged and given the death penalty. So then you offer this opportunity to let's change South Africa, and you basically steal the economy. Because if you go, you can go a little bit further into history. That's a topic for another night. But you can go a little bit further into history and just touch on that and see. Even the British came to our shores. The Boers fight the British, right? And the Zulus also fought the British. So which means we both agreed that our independence was at stake. So otherwise, I mean, a lot of the black people in this country referred to whites as colonizers, as to we're the problem. But why were we stuck in concentration camps by the British? Why were you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And at the end of that, British rule ended in South Africa, and there was an independent government installed. We had a rebellion. The Boers had a rebellion against that government because of the independence at stake. So this comes a long way, and I think in '94, apartheid was a good implementation, and when it ended in 1994. Everything was just basically handed with a great political plan to unite the majority people in the country behind struggle heroes. And then I'm sorry, I sometimes do feel sorry for a lot of the politicians, the black politicians in this country, because a lot of them were drawn into this and sucked into this.
Yeah.
And you get to a stage that you are as corrupt or corrupted, then there's totally a hold on you. And that is what we see play out every day in our government.
Now, there is a conspiracy that Hendrik Verwoerd was assassinated by these people you're talking about because he didn't want to follow their plans. What are your thoughts on that?
He was definitely assassinated because, and he didn't want to go with the plans at the time. So the question is, if we draw back the lines, if we identify let me call it a common enemy to South African citizens from all races and cultures. And I mean, like I said, we should have, we had wars in this country before the British came. I mean, we had the Zulu Boer War, we had the Xhosa Boer, we had various wars, but we didn't have endless wars. There was a war, it ended, and there was basically a respect between the cultures. But now it's something different. Now it's a racial thing that I don't even think we had this level of racism before '94 in this country. There was obviously a big build-up to the end of apartheid, but the level of racism today, I mean, the level of murder and physical racial tension in this country, I don't think we've seen this. And this comes to a question which is a very big one. And South Africa, I know it's historical to a lot of whites specifically, they see this as insignificant maybe, or not insignificant, but they don't see this as in play at this moment. But I believe it's very much in play, is the question of who killed Chris Hani. Because
that's a big question, yeah.
It's a very big question. And the thing about that is that if you look at what happened, I mean, we all know in pre-94, it was white people voting only. I mean, those are the facts. And then there came a referendum, and the majority of white people, 60-odd%, voted to give black people voting rights and to bring change to this country. So why afterwards would the white people go and kill the hero at the time of the black people? Why would they? But then the question you must seriously ask there, what did Chris Hani want? Chris Hani wanted to change this country and make it better for all who live in it. That was his mission and opinion. And I don't think that went very well with big business and board politicians at the time.
So it could be the similar thing to what happened to Hendrik Verwoerd. Because he didn't play the game, he was taken up.
Yes. Now, I have it as a factual statement on record that there are highly placed people in this country who knows who killed Chris Hani, who knows who ordered the hit on Chris Hani, because that is a very critical thing. And I believe that that question should be answered, and they must come out with that truth, because that will heal South Africa. And we need to heal South Africa so we can all understand what is coming now, and how are we going to work through this. So yeah, and that is unfortunately the truth. I mean, I know many people there's been people taken out about that. There's been people are too afraid to even talk about that, and that should be talked about amongst people, because what did we gain? What would we gain of taking out Chris Hani?
Yeah, well, I understand that it's on the record that 18 people knew who ordered Hani be killed, and 9 are dead already. So the numbers who know are getting smaller and smaller.
Yes, and obviously, time is getting less and less. I mean, we should understand, looking at our political system, looking at our government, the ANC side of it, it's mostly elder politicians. And I'm sorry to say, but it's like they're protecting each other. When the new ones comes in, things will start falling apart, and that's the problem.
Right.
Because it's the secrets like this. It's the secret like this. Who killed Chris Hani? We know Clive W. Lewis and Janus Wallace were pointed out, but they did not on their own accord kill Chris Hani. That's the point.
Right. Now
they did not kill Chris Hani.
Let's move on to state capture. Now, you're suggesting that state capture started in 1994 when there was that transitional government going to the ANC. Can you tell us about that?
Well, like I said, explained to you just now, there was members of powerful families embedded right in the top structures of the ANC at the time, and then this individual went on to roll out economic policy for South Africa. He rolled out the knee-pad economic policy for Thabo Mbeki, and various other, various African countries. So that's the question: was it political? Was it what South Africa obviously was the road to Africa at the time? So was Africa also captured at the same time? I know that's a very scary question, but it really links up very well.
Right. No,
so
yeah, carry on.
Okay, and then looking at Zimbabwe, obviously Robert Mugabe was he started publicly going against us. We all know it. He started calling out Europe and whatever for owning Zimbabwe and owning Africa and the economies and whatsoever, and looked at what happened to Zimbabwe. So it is something to consider very carefully. But I think in a divided country, it's something to consider very carefully, because then it's very easy to manipulate, cut off everything. Because I mean, these guys are really the banks in this country is connected. If a lot of big families are connected, that's for sure. There's no question about that. But
no.
So that brings me to the next serious point that links up with this as well. In 2020, the United Nations said there will be a famine of biblical proportions starting, one. So we physically monitored the food price increases over time, as you showed at the start of your video.
Yeah. I'll put them up again.
Just the doubling of main grain, soybeans, corn, and wheat, that can be calculated to third world countries, people starving. That can be directly calculated to the increase of people starving in third world countries. And then you must see the recent news of big countries like China and whatever importing record grain at the moment. So that leaves third world countries and impoverished countries around the world totally exposed and at risk. So, and this is why it's so super important that we get to the behind these issues, and we can get unity in South Africa so we can start growing food. Because this whole land question issue is not helping. I can assure you there is lots of land in government's hand. And it was physically proven just the other day when what's the municipality owned Eskom a lot of money, and they gave them 2.5 billion rand worth of agricultural land. So why did that municipality sit with 2.5 billion rand agricultural land if we have a land crisis or a land issue in this country? So, and also we want to know how many farms has been bought out since 97, since the land reform program started, because that is not common knowledge. Information is not public. Why can't we know? Because black people needs to know this. White people, we all need to know what land's available and how much land is in big corporations and big companies' hands. Well, because that's very important.
I must just say at this point that the actions of the First National Bank in particular were exposed on this live on this channel a few days ago. Mm-hmm. And the securitization of commercial loans was shown to be a fraud. And as a result, people who've got housing loans and things like that, and anybody who's watching this, we've got about 850 people watching right now. Anyone who's watching this live stream right now, just go back to the main Loving Life homepage and then look up that live stream where we talked about FNB, and it'll blow your socks off, believe me. But I just want to get onto the state capture from 1994, and in particular, I want to ask you about this. George Soros has had his Open Society Foundation sniffing around South Africa since the 1970s. And his top people are now the advisors. People don't realize this. His top people, the Open Society Foundation people, are the advisors to the ministers of various areas. And in particular, the hot subject right now is expropriation without compensation. And you can Google this to confirm what I'm going to tell you. There's an organization called PLAS, that's P-L-A-A-S, or the Afrikaans for farm. But it doesn't stand for PLAS, even though the person who works there, Professor Ruth Hall, is the advisor to the ANC government on the expropriation policy. Now, guess who funds PLAS? Open Society Foundation. That's an example of what we're talking about, what's going on behind the scenes that people don't realize. Do you want to add to what I've just said?
No. To what you said, I totally agree with you. That is obviously part of the big. This is not just a South African problem. We can see this play out everywhere in the world at the moment. It is, I mean, just a simple example. We see in the United States this massive $1.9 billion COVID-19 relief, and like 10% is spent on COVID-19. The rest is all spent on big projects and big. And you must understand, there's people making money out of these big projects, and so it's definitely a very big economical move in this world that is underway at the moment, political and economical, because you can see it play out everywhere. Right. And the thing is, you know, you can't ask South Africa and you can't ask Africa, but if you could, I would really at this stage ask South Africa and Africa to look at the fact that the world, there's another big play. I'm just looking at the food crisis at the moment, and I can assure you that the trend we are going now, if you follow the trend we are going now, people, especially poor people, remember a guy that pays 30 rand for a bag of mielie meal is now paying 60 rand. That is immediately starvation for people that can't afford.
Yeah.
So and that brings out emotion. And now you keep on stirring race and you keep on stirring calling white monopoly capital. Not everyone in this country is rich. Not everyone from any culture. It's a percentage of people, and I think at the moment there's a lot of black people in the same boat as well. That are, I believe, there's more black millionaires in South Africa than white millionaires at the moment.
Well, certainly amongst the politicians, that's for sure.
Yes. So I really think we must get to a point where we discuss these things, because we will starve. We will starve in this country, and with the new technology that's available, we don't need massive swathes of land to plant. And if plants, you know, there's basic simple, basic blueprints that can be rolled out to get us planting.
Right. Now, I just want to pick
And-
up on your suggestion that there could be an amnesty for the ANC in the future. Do you think that Jacob Zuma was the fall guy? Because I don't think Johan Rupert likes Jacob Zuma very much, does he?
I'm drawing the facts together on that.
Yeah.
And Jacob Zuma is set up pretty well in Fort Knox there, in Gandla. And yeah, but I do sense the fact that this is falling apart at the moment. There's a bit more of humanity coming through, because people stole for a long time, and nobody questioned that. I mean, just to touch on that, I'm going to get to that point now, but just to touch on that, for year on year in South Africa, and people need to ask these questions. For year on year, we see the Auditor General come out and say, okay, there's 5 billion or 10 billion or so many billions stolen. But not once do we hear they've investigated the money, the money trail. It's not that billions are not stolen in cash. Billions are stolen in electronic transfers. So why can they not trace one such transaction of these billions stolen from one bank account to another? Because our hawks and police force are can I say, they are caught between political fights, and they are not able to do their job. They function at this moment, because that's the most basic thing. This money comes out of a government account, paid into a corruptor's account. It must be traced, but never is this done. The buck always stops at, oh, there's 5 billion stolen. That's it. Nothing happens further.
Yeah.
So yeah, based on that, I believe under Jacob Zuma's rule, there was a lot of money stolen as well, of which he admittedly knows about. So is the question concerning Jacob Zuma, is he in cahoots with this, or is he finally saying, okay, we have to do something because we can see where this is going? This country is corrupt, and we're standing on the brink of a food crisis. And so where's this going now? And I do believe, I do strongly hope that if he's not the fall guy, then he's the exposer, because he did mention a couple of things that came out about, the ANC when they came out of prison. They suddenly started buying big houses, and they had millions of bucks. So where did it come from? So he did start mentioning a couple of stuff. So I hope, for South Africa's sake, for every living being in this country's sake, there would be honorable people that stands up. At least redeem yourselves. At least redeem yourselves in front of South Africa, saying, I got sucked into this, and because once you're sucked in, you're in. You just follow instructions from there. So I do honestly hope that there's a turn of events amongst Jacob Zuma and hopefully some of the other politicians as well. Right. I do see there's a couple of politicians sidelined. Specifically, you can see a couple of politicians sidelined, like Musi Maimane, specifically for this basically coalition building, because, like I said,
we're talking
with the German business. Yes.
Right. Now,
basically, the political system. Let's not call it ANC. Let's call it post-current political system.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing that I see here, understanding the direct role that Rupert plays in controlling what happens in South Africa, is that allegedly he threatened the ANC a few weeks ago regarding Zuma and the arrests. And he basically said, look, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to withdraw financial support. Do you know about that particular situation?
I've seen that, and I've heard about that. But like I said to you, I don't think. I think we had a constitutional crisis since 2017 already, and it because there's no other other way explaining it. There's no way that a president can stand in front of the country and in front of the parliament and point and say, "I know exactly who's stealing and where they're stealing," and nobody says a word about it. There's no way that can happen.
Right.
So I think it's just that it is falling apart at the seams, and I just trust it's in the best interest of South Africa and everyone in South Africa, because like the rooi gevaar, Julius Malema, I mean, to me, it's really clear where this red is like really the rooi gevaar, and they get involved in these things like, okay, we all saw the Tresemme thing, and then we saw the Senekal thing, and then we saw the Durbanville school thing, and then suddenly there was a big pause. Did you realize that?
Yeah.
But it's funny enough to me, at the same time, that's when Neil de Beer started approaching. And he rocked up. He was involved in the Senekal thing and then the Tresemme, and then he went to Durbanville and he was going to face him there, but he left before Malema came. And then, and then suddenly there's this pause, this quietness, and I just hope people start looking beyond racism in this country and see where this is leading. Because I can assure South Africa today, you cannot get rid of 4.5 million white people. You cannot get rid of colored people, Indian people, black. It's impossible. So we're going to have to work together.
I want to get back to Neil de Beer. What you're actually saying here, or suggesting here, is that he's actually a front for those who are controlling South Africa. Is that correct?
I do strongly believe. I do know he is involved, and he was highly involved in the ANC, and I do know he's highly involved in big business people, and I do know he's involved in the big business families, the 9 that plans to change the political system in South Africa. That's correct.
Well, that should be a huge wake-up call for people who support the guy. I mean, I've had him on a live stream a couple of times, and you know, he changes his story quite a lot. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to carry on.
Never clear. The thing is, the answer is never clear, because I believe here's the thing. You are known as a double spot. You obviously were in the top enclaves, and then there's a new political system coming. You selfly admit there's a new political system coming, and you're setting up a political party and independent movement where you are declared the president, and you control the political party, the political movement for independent candidates. That's just...
Yeah, and I know that Neil de Beer has said quite publicly that I will be the president in 2024. So he seems very, very confident about that.
Yes. I mean, the statement is, if you were economic advisor to 4 presidents, then you are the president. So that's very, very clear. But so I don't know. I just honestly hope South Africa. I've got lots of hope for South Africa. Currently, I'm not sure if everybody knows this. Okay, people see it and obviously hear about it. The world's weather patterns are changing. I don't know. I personally see it as a climate change cycle. People call it global warming, whatever they want. But Africa is becoming greener, and it's a fact. Africa is becoming greener, and we have pretty stable weather here still, whereas the rest of the world are losing crops like big time. Really big time. I'm not sure if people watch this in the news. France just lost their entire wine production, basically. And, it snows in summer. Wow. China had summer snow in areas. So this is all over the world changing. And I strongly I am very confident Africa can become the food basket of this world.
Right.
We can, because the world's going through a crisis and there's a food shortage.
Now, that takes me to the next issue I want to cover with you, and that is that the leader of the World Economic Forum last year famously said or talked about the Great Reset, and he talks about by the year 2030 where there'll be a global government, a global currency, and he says you can actually go to the World Economic Forum webpage and you'll see this. They actually say that in 2030, you will own nothing, but you will be happy. They actually say that. Yeah.
There's just lots of people make these things out of conspiracy theories, but this is on their website. This is on the World Economic Forum
website. Yeah. Now, Johann Rupert just recently said, just like Klaus Schwab, this is not a pause, but a reset. So he clearly is in the camp of the World Economic Forum, isn't he?
Well, definitely. And I do strongly suggest, and I do strongly see this, and we should have another discussion about this, about the empire shifts that are going on in this world, because I've been very closely following it since 2007, and I can put a lot of things on record for you why this is an empire fight going on at the moment between specifically China and the USA. And it's all the information is there. I mean, China's really set themselves up over the last few years with their own SWIFT system they created. It's not rolled out. You know, they've got the BRICS Bank as a IMF or World Bank structure in place. They've got the only currency currently, they're ready to roll it out, the only cryptocurrency that's 100% backed up by gold, which brings you basically back to the gold standard. And the US obviously is fighting that with all sides. But there's a lot of facts about that. We can discuss it later. But bringing back to the food shortage, the global food shortage, this honestly offers Africa the opportunity to become a rich continent, really, again, like it was hundreds of years ago. But the problem with this is big companies are going to come in, invest big time in agriculture in Africa and in South Africa specifically as well. So, and this is going to happen very soon. There is big companies ready to set up massive projects right up the West Coast, right up through South Africa, into Africa. And basically then they own the food supply. So currently they own the politics, they own the economy, they basically own the entire system, but then they own the food supply as well. So, that is very concerning, and I think it'll be very much controlled. And apart from the fact that I do strongly believe that there will be, unfortunately, nobody wants this, but millions of people will die in Africa if this food shortage really kicks in here. And the first world countries buy up all the available food because they can afford it. So that is very, very important point. And this is why I decided to discuss these topics. And I've got some, like I said, most of the stuff that I've pointed out here to you in the 10 points is on record. I can share that with you. And then you can go through it and share it with your audience just to prove the fact.
Right.
But we are definitely in not just an economic reset, we are in a political reset as well. And I do believe we'll see the implosion of the DA and the ANC following.
Okay, we'll look at that in a short while. I just want to address, we've got about 1,000 people watching the live stream at the moment. I just want to say to everybody, guys, if you want to ask questions, please put a loving life at the start of your question, then ask your question, and I'll put those to X a bit later. Now, Sophie has said here, you talk nonsense about China and the US, Mr. X. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, the China and the US, China is a very interesting topic. China has struggled for 10 years, more than 10 years, to get the currency added to the global currency basket, right? Which was dominated by the dollar, the pound, and the euro at the time. So in 2016, I believe, 2016, under correction, they finally got it. Accepted into this world currency basket. And then from then, a lot of moves took place with China. They really started. Remember, China grew. China, put it this way, China is second in class. Okay, the US is first in class. You will always challenge the first in class, and the first in class will always protect its position. Just to put it out there. So China has been starting to publicly criticize the USA. I mean, in recent discussions in Alaska, the first discussions since the end of the Trump regime, China stood up, the US opened up with a 2 minutes talk of, we're not happy with your human rights in Myanmar, and we're not happy with Taiwan, we're not happy with the Uyghur Muslims and all of this. Then the Chinese top diplomat stood up and he spoke for 12 to 14 minutes and he told the US, you do not talk for the world anymore, you talk for yourself from now.
And they also said
And
that they also said to the US, well, you're racist. Look at Black Lives Matter. You know, they've got all this sort of, and you know, they just came straight back at the US, didn't they?
They did. And they basically said to them right there, your system, you don't lecture us on our system. Look at your own system. Look at your own country and look at the system that you've imposed on this world. So there's definitely a challenge of empires. There's no question. And if you really look at what China has done since the last, at least 2017 or 16, a bit longer, but they've rebuilt the Silk Road, the Belt and Road Initiative, but basically rebuilt the Silk Road. And the end of 2020, I'll remember the last day of 2020, China signed agreements with Europe, okay? Like trade agreements with Europe. Trade, what do they call it? They didn't call it a trade agreement. They gave it another name, but it's the same thing. And just before that, just before December 2020, China signed trade agreements with Australia, South Korea, Japan, all the US allies. So go and look into that. It's all publicly available.
Yeah.
So yeah, China is definitely challenging and funny stuff that comes out. It's mainstream news. People don't talk about these things. They don't see these things. Mainstream news. The US Defense Secretary came on live on the Pentagon brief, and he said China and Russia are using weapons, direct energy weapons, and these things against us already. That's live. So people must go and look at these things and then tell me I'm talking nonsense again.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that the reason we're touching on China is because China's going to cause a huge problem for South Africa, because I don't think the US will come to South Africa's aid if China just walks in with their military. I think that's it. It's game over, isn't it?
Well, I do think this is why if we can get this right as South Africa and we can declare our independence from this, let me call it almost a cabal, because that's what it is. And we can declare our independence. South Africa and Africa will have no issue to supply China, but we are independent. We are not owned and we are not controlled by any country in this world. That should be the thing. And unfortunately, this current system where all the countries in the world are controlled by the current empire is the status quo cannot continue, because we will stay poor forever. Every country or empire will come in here, take our resources, take our China at the moment. You must remember, China just before COVID-19, like 2 months before COVID-19, they culled the entire pig population. Right now, China is a pig. Pork is one of the staple meats in China, so they culled more than 1 billion. And since then, they started drastically increasing importing soya beans initially, and then the rest followed after. So they are very much hard hit on that front as well, but also by this climate change issue. And they stated, you can check on their news, they stated they've got summer rain in crop areas that kills crops and whatever. So they are affected. So they had massive floods in big crop areas as well. So yeah, there's definitely a big push coming from China, and I do think if they want to do it, now is probably the best time for them to do it. And I don't much see the US pushing back. The US cannot fight a war when they're divided on their own at the moment.
Exactly.
They will fight each other.
Yeah, now,
that's the fact.
We've touched on this subject, but I'm fascinated by the role of the UIM in this political environment that South Africa's in. Now, is the next president pre-selected by the people who actually own South Africa? And here we're talking about possibly being Neil de Beer.
Well, it basically sounds like that from what he states. He openly states, and he states this. That the fact that the most powerful business families in South Africa came together and then decided to fix this country now and to change the system, and he's going to become president. So I do not see. I would question that fact if it was any other white guy in South Africa, but like we do know, history that he was highly involved in the ANC in Umkhonto Sizwe. So I don't know, maybe, but I wouldn't trust it for one moment. I'll be very honest with that. I wouldn't trust it. And the fact that what bugs me about this is a lot of these new politicians and business, can I say business bought politicians that's on the block now. They do know using God is a very big thing, especially with Afrikaans people. You know, the older generation of Afrikaans people, if you say God in a sentence, they just follow you blindly. And I'm sorry, but that is people shouldn't be blind. People shouldn't be blind. Look at facts. Yeah. Look at facts, look at history. And then draw your conclusions on that. Not just a guy that says God once and then you follow him blindly.
Right. Now, this is a political aspect to what's happening in South Africa that fascinates me, and that is that you've got Steenhuisen from the Democratic Alliance saying openly that he would form a coalition with the ANC under Ramaphosa. And I think what he's talking about there is if the ANC splits with the Ace Magashula faction on one side and the Ramaphosa faction on the other side, whereas the economic freedom fighters under Julius Malema are clearly in the court of the other ANC side, which is under Ace Magashula and his cohorts. Now, clearly the better option would be Ramaphosa, because if you had Magashula as president, and the corrupt way he's done things, you know, it's a very scary scenario. What are your thoughts on this coalition or the way these three big parties are moving in the future?
Well, I do see the current existing coalition already between the ANC and DA. Like I said, there's no opposition. There's no physical opposition. There's talk and there's media, but there's no physical opposition action. And then, well, talk about Ace Magashule and that faction, the Radical Economic Transformation faction. I would tell you today, I will 100% support radical economic transformation if it meant radical economic transformation for all in this country. If it meant taking the power back from businesses and banks and business people and influential people and giving it back to the people, all the people in this country. Because if the people in this country team up and you know, bring our diverse, not just our diverse culture, but our diverse ability to the table, it will make a major difference. So in that regard, it is possible that faction decided, okay, we need radical economic transformation, meaning breaking away from this current economic monopoly system.
Right.
But then directing it at whites is the wrong thing, because if they want to direct it at anyone, they should start naming people. You cannot generalize 4.5 million white people for being in control of the economy, where the same thing, 90% of white people are just barely making a living, and especially now, lots of changes there, and closer to a million white people are living on or below the bread line, and taking, you know, converting that to a population of 40 million people, very much equivalent.
Now, I understand that Neil de Beer is actually watching this live stream. I have Neil on Skype. If you're happy, I will invite Neil to come and join this discussion, seeing that he's clearly, apparently, in a pre-planned situation politically. Do you have a problem with Neil de Beer joining us, X?
No, you can add him, no problem.
Okay. Well, Neil, if you just make yourself known in the side chat and say, yes, I'll be happy to join the discussion, I will Skype you so that you can come and join us. I'll leave that in your hands. Okay, let's continue with the discussion here. Now, who sits behind the chaos in South Africa? Tell us about that.
That is very clear. With everything we discussed now, this is the final touching point, is divide and conquer. I mean, you keep on telling black people, we are the enemy, and you keep on telling white people they're the enemy, because of corruption of a percentage of the ruling party. I mean, we cannot call everybody corrupt. We cannot call everybody racist. That's impossible. But that is what's being peddled in the media. And we have to look seriously at the media as well. Who owns the media? The media is very much controlled, and you can see that narrative. I just saw that live interview of Tokoyo Sexwale come out, and afterwards the media spin was straight away, he fell for it's a scam, a conspiracy theory. So it's very much controlled. To see all the media taking the same storyline on that should raise serious questions for South Africans as well.
Right. Okay. I'm just waiting to see if Neil de Beer is going to be joining us. But while I'm waiting, I'm just going to put some questions to you that I've got. Lemon Sweet has asked, has South Africa's government had word from Germany?
Well, like I said, in as far as I'm concerned, Mmusi Maimane is involved with German business people. As the One South Africa movement is very silent at the moment, so it's obviously aimed for future. Because I asked the question at the time, the DA was doing good. They were moving forward and gaining support to a point where there was a fallout, and Maimane was kicked off as ruler, and then the DA brought back Helen Zille. It was obviously always referred to as the madam. And Tony Leon back in is DAing again. So that raised serious questions. I think the DA got to the conclusion that although they've transformed and have a big black following as well, they would never get rid of the stigma that they are the old NP government or a white dominated party and very Israel dominated as well. We have to bring that fact up. Very, very much Israel. I've actually challenged the DA on Johan Steenhuisen's Facebook page. And I put 5 facts out there why they are in cahoots with the ANC. And I put physical statements by their own and ANC politicians on there as evidence of that. And then I said, okay, I will conclude with the Jewish influence of the DA. And then they banned me from their page and they blocked me from everything. So
that sounds like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. They're banning people all the time. Now, Marlena said, Scott, do you want me to phone Neil de Beer? Yes, Marlena, please do. And ask him to, if he's not following us anymore, if he can just go into the live stream and just in the side chat say, yes, please, I'll be happy to join the conversation. And then I will Skype him. He can't Skype me because I'll have to join him to this conversation with X. So, yeah, Marlena, if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. Okay, now let's continue. Now, Tokolosh has asked, ask this guy why he wants to plant more and more and more and maintain the status quo as to land issues and farm attacks.
Obviously not. Just to answer him straightly, obviously not. What I state is there is lots of land in government hands, and we want to know how much. South Africa needs to know how much land is available, because there's very basic plans that can be implemented. We don't need, like I said, we don't need massive pieces of land anymore to farm. I mean, there's horizontal farming and all these new concepts of farming where you can get profitable farming on smaller pieces of land. So if you take available land and you break it up in, say, for instance, 2 hectare plots, and you give it to the interesting party to farm, let's put it the black up-and-coming farmer, and you lease it to him for 2 years, and you give him a blueprint with data-driven, which is scarce in the world, data-driven crops to farm, and within 6 months or so he can double his farming and he can grow, and you support him financially, because all these trillions they've stolen could have been helping these guys to come be farmers by today. And then after 2 years, that person can decide, does he want to buy that land at a minimal price, because then he worked for it, he owns it, and he can grow it, and he can hand it over to his children one day, and it'll sort out a big land issue that we have here as well. And then I would say this, I don't think there's lots of people that owns a couple of farms, some of them lying dormant. I think that should be reviewed. And I disagree totally with compensation without payment. But because, like I said, trillions are stolen. They could have bought these farms by now and handed them to the people, but there's no political will. Because that asks the question, are the people just too corrupt and don't see the food scarcity and the famine that's coming? Or is it planned? Do they want to own the land by then? That's the question.
Yeah.
So
No, I totally get that.
Answer,
Yeah, carry on.
I do not want the status quo to continue at all. In actual fact, I want us to talk to each other to change the status quo and get to a solution to these problems. And it's not a racial solution. It will never be a racial solution.
Right. The Korean place has asked, when will the Great Reset happen?
Well, I believe we can all see it's happening. It's already happening. It's definitely, it's either, okay, here's the answer. But not to get conspiratorial about this, but it's either COVID is part of the reset or the reset is implemented as a result of COVID. That's either or.
Right. Now, Tokoyo has asked, even on the outskirts of the cities I'll start that again. Even on the outskirts of the cities on small holdings, the attacks happen. Only in the cities behind walls with armed response is safe. How will this stop if we provide more targets?
Well, Tokoyo, the honest answer to that is we need unity in this country. So we need to understand where is the issues, where are the issues lying that divides us as South Africans. Land is one. Is there a solution? Will government be part of that solution? Or is it just a one-track mind, take the land? Because that's not the solution. It didn't work. We have to agree. It didn't work in Zimbabwe. It won't work here the way they are doing it. I totally agree. There are farmers that can farm very well. But to take someone, we all understand this, to take someone and put him on a piece of land and say, now you farm, is not going to work. It's not going to work. So it needs to be something that's grown. It's not something, there you go, there's a 10 million rand farm it. It's going to get destroyed, like we've seen all over. So start with the fact where people take pride in what they build up for themselves and their families. And not saying there is land in government hands. It's a fact. They must just disclose it, because then that political racial issue already starts subsiding.
Right. Now, okay, Korean Place has asked an interesting question. He says, do you believe in the prophecies of Sina van Rensburg?
Who, me? Do I believe in the prophecies of Sina van Rensburg? Okay, honest answer. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer. I believe in God with all my heart, all my life. This is why I'm talking to you and talking to the people of my country, because everyone's my people and I'm everyone's people. And I do believe, and I will say this, I do honestly believe that some of the things there are also twisted, in a sense of, I don't see it play out as it's been, what's the word again, translated, right, by people that saw it. Because I do not see us having a racial war in this country. It's not going to happen. It will be detriment. Put it this way. If we have a racial war in South Africa between black and white or whatever, that is the lead up, that's the build up from lots of these politicians, then trust me, millions of black people will starve and die, and millions of white people will starve and die. So it's in no one's interest. It's really in no one's interest to have that.
Yeah.
So I do believe it's these people that we're going to chase out of this country. Actually, the fact it should be clear. These corrupt politicians, the ones with honorability, a little bit of honor left, and can come out and redeem themselves in front of the whole South Africa and go, this is the situation. This is what transpired. We've been sucked in, we've been bought, and we've been part of the problem. But now we need change. And then the people can decide what the judgment is those people should face for telling the truth and coming out. But if the status quo continues like it is, we will have an issue because it's building up. If the haves have more now and the don't have less now. So obviously somewhere there's going to be a point where people go hungry, and they're going to start taking from the haves.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Mr. Savage asked, what are your thoughts on Ndlozi calling to expropriate South African diamonds in the Queen's royal jewels?
I would love that. Actually, my mindset works like, if really South Africans can unite, and we keep all these corrupting families in South Africa, they are not allowed to leave until they return all the riches in Switzerland banks and everywhere else that they've siphoned it off to. We keep them here. They stay right here. They're not allowed to go anywhere until they return that stolen money. And that money can rebuild this country. And all the minerals they've taken and stolen. And this comes a long time. This comes before apartheid even. I mean, during apartheid even, that these companies have all the minerals and the mineral rights, and before apartheid even.
Well, Dr. Atherstone in Grahamstown back in the 1800s was the first man to identify a diamond by actually scratching it on glass and seeing that the glass scratched, and that's how he identified it as a diamond.
Yes.
And so they had some huge. They had the Hope diamond and diamonds like that, which were huge.
So the hope would be that we can get pride as South Africans restored. As South Africans, all of us, pride restored, and say, you know what, we need to sort this country out for the sake of all of us, and we need to get back what was stolen, or at least stop the steal, immediately stop the steal.
Well, I guess what we're saying is that this is really a political thing. People have got to realize that the politics has been basically stolen.
Manipulated.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I asked this question to my fellow South Africans. If we all do a job, we got work. If you don't do your job, you get fired, or you get too serious. If you continuously don't do your job, you'll get fired. So now the question is, we have a minister of water, but we have a water crisis in this country, and I don't care if that minister is black, white, Indian, or whatever culture, race or culture. We don't have water. Why don't we have water? Because the minister is not doing the job. Then we have issues of polluted water. I mean, we have in South Africa, in every country around the world, we have legislation to prevent polluting our water systems. But these big companies, and those are the biggest polluters, they come, they pollute, and they give brown envelopes, and they get away with it scot-free. And we sit with the consequence. And the minister sits there, and we don't have water. The same goes for Minister of Police. Why do we have so much crime? Because the Minister of Police and the police force, from the head up, we have to look at the head. We cannot look at the ground, because it starts at the snake's head, all of these issues. So the Minister of Police is not doing his job. That's a fact. If the money in this country gets stolen and stolen and stolen, there's no result of it. There's no action on it. Who's to blame then? The finance minister. Because he just keeps on dishing out to SAA and Eskom and keeps on dishing out. We pay more for electricity. Now we take a guy, we put the rater there. 2 years later, has anything changed in Eskom? We had price increases. We have load shedding again. Nothing has changed.
Well, De Ruyter's been allegedly charged with racism because he's been firing some of these black tenderpreneurs, the BEEs. Now, I just want to touch on that because, there is something clearly wrong with these tenders that have been given to the ANC mates, the cadres, because they are black economic empowerment compliant, and all they are is a shell company with an office which is probably in the guy's bedroom, and he's the only guy who works there, and he gets a 50 million rand tender where he just marks the price up and takes a cut on the way through. Do you have any information on that you want to share with people?
Well, first-hand information I do have of a couple of big companies in the country. It's very difficult to do business in South Africa. I promise you that. If you are honorable and you want to do righteous and non-corrupt business, you're pretty much screwed in this country because everybody wants something. If you go to Eskom, you can be a vendor of Eskom, but they place the orders through a third party, for instance. And who knows what happens to the price? And it's just a mess. It's serious. I've personally had not a contract, basically a contract, a deal agreement on on a mine, an Anglo-American mine in South Africa. That and these guys requested me to increase the price with R1 million, otherwise I won't get the contract. And I refused. I have to walk away because I'm not going to be unrighteous. And in future time, you know, my name and my business and everything is linked to that.
Right.
So in future, they just tend to go like, "You're corrupt." I'm not corrupt. I want to change the status quo because, and this is something I'm saying to every South African, white, colored, Indian, black, everyone. If you are yourself corrupt, you cannot look at these politicians and say they are corrupt because you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem.
Right. Now, I've given Neil de Beer about 20 minutes to give us notification that he would come and join us, but he obviously has decided not to because he hasn't put any statement in the side chat. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping up this live stream, X, because I just want to put this question to you from Tokoyo, and then I'll add my thoughts to this as well. And he says, okay, we have to accept that the money is going to be stolen because the law won't help and neither will crime. What do we do about it? How do we peacefully resist? And I just want to add to that question and say, what is the solution to this state capture by big business of South Africa?
Well, in my opinion, I have one solution only. There is not, I have no solution. There is one solution only. 60 million people must decide we are becoming independent. And we are going to together save this country and stop the steal. And between, you know what, there's an issue in South Africa about tribalism. I respect tribalism. I love the Zulu culture and their tribe and the Xhosa culture and their tribe and the Bushman and the Afrikaner culture. And that, why is that such a big issue? You know, let people be who they want to be. And if that can be, because that is the only real way to get almost control back. To say to the Zulu nation, listen here, talk to your people. This is the current situation in our country. To say to the Xhosa people, talk to your people, and the Bushmen and the white people and the Boers and whatever you want to call them. Talk to them and say we need to come to a non-political solution because politics obviously just makes it worse.
Right. Now, Graham, yeah, carry on, sorry.
For me, I just want to wrap up from my side. Like you said, you're wrapping up the show. Yeah. And I just want to say, I strongly, really strongly believe this has gone way too long now. And we all know if you can carry on, if you corrupt or you scam and whatever, you can carry on. It's going to come back and bite you in the butt in the end. And this is what's happening. This is judgment. This is justice that's going to come. So these things are going to get exposed. It might be a little bit rough in this country for a bit, but if we can manage this and we can do this all together, we will definitely get out much, much stronger on the other side. And these guys that are corrupting us and robbing us and stealing us, they stand the most to lose. Because the moment 60 million South Africans turn around and said enough now, they're gonna come to book. There's no other way. You cannot hide these things forever. You cannot. You cannot hide it forever.
Yeah. Now, this is Mr. X talking, just for the person who asked. Okay, so Graham has just asked a really interesting question. He says, please ask X to name the families. And I guess we're talking about the 9 families that actually run South Africa. Obviously, Rupert is one.
Well, it's definitely Michael Louis, the House of Louis, the Ruperts, the De Beers. I will get you the list of the 9 names very soon.
Okay, and I'll put that underneath this video in the description.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. Look, I'm going to start wrapping up. Just as a closing statement, X, is there something you'd like to say to, there are close to 1,000 people watching at the moment. Is there something you'd like to say to these people?
Pray for South Africa. Really pray for South Africa. I think if people look back at our history, look back at what has happened to our country, People, the first thing people do when you refer back to the past, because our history has been written, so our school children and our young of today only knows about apartheid. There's nothing before, there's nothing more. That's apartheid. So we need to get past that point, because lots more happened in the past. Remember, Britain colonized half the world in Africa. We don't see them being killed every day. So we need to find a solution, and the only solution is 60 million people working together, or at least the majority of us. And we need to pray. We really need to pray to God to help us through this.
Right. Jackie Solomon, tongue in cheek, says, Mr. X sounds like Neil de Beer. You have any comment to that?
No,
You'll let that one pass to the keeper, will you?
I will say the big difference between me and a lot of these I'm not interested in becoming a politician. I don't want to be a leader. I'll walk with South Africans. That's the point.
Yeah.
Just that we choose a leader and they almost treat it like gods. You cannot ask them anything. You cannot touch them. You cannot get close to them. That's wrong, man. That's just wrong. So I am definitely not like any of these guys.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. X, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope we can have another live stream in the near future to cover other subjects related to this, or if there's more information you get from the inside you want to share with people, please keep in touch with Marlena over that, and yeah, we'll certainly have you back. To those who are watching right now, we're still well over 900 people watching. Please remember to subscribe to Loving Life on YouTube, and please also consider registering on lovingalifetv.com. If one of the moderators could put that up there in the side chat. This is where we are moving to. Now, just for those who don't know, we have a live stream every night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. And we cover some very, very important and interesting subjects. Just a couple of days ago, we covered the subject of why many bank loans in South Africa are fraud, and how people are now actually taking banks like the FNB and Absa Bank to the courts and winning over loans that they've been foreclosed on. And this is the sort of stuff that we are getting into with our live streams. In fact, on Monday night, we're going to be talking to hopefully 2 people about the same subject from a different perspective. So if you've got a loan and the banks are knocking at your door, you've got to watch the video we had a few days ago. You'll see FNB is on the icon, and listen to that and get your head around why they're committing fraud when they come and try and foreclose on your loan. It's a fascinating case. And we've got a whole lot of different subjects coming up the whole time. I want to thank the moderators for keeping an eye on the side chat. It's been quite busy tonight. Thanks, guys. And for those who've joined us, thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you at 8 p.m. most nights. And every second day at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., I do have special live streams where I cover the epic walks of Peter Sito, who we've supported from the start. Loving Life family actually bought him his little white car that you've probably seen. And we're also covering Jarrett Onions, who's walked from Howick in KwaZulu-Natal right through Bethlehem, and he's on his way to Cape Town. He's close to Beaufort West right now. And if anyone lives near the road, the N1 between Beaufort West and Cape Town, if they could please contact me, because we're looking for people who are happy to put him up for the night as he walks towards Cape Town. All right, guys, take care. I'm going to leave the live stream side chat open for a few minutes, and hope to see you tomorrow night. Bye for now.